Hey guys, how's it going? We're all so dead in here. Oh my gosh. What's the deal? Welcome to Capital Factory for those of you who haven't been here before. My name's JD Weinstein. I work with both our accelerator and our fund here. Hopefully you're in the right place and you're here to learn about a bunch of different Austin accelerators. Is that right? Yeah. If not, you can dart out of here real quick. But the way this will work is I'll run through a deck really quickly for about 15-20 minutes or so, and then we'll just open it up for Q&A. I spent some time working with a couple different accelerators, so I'm super familiar with the space in Austin, and then obviously with our program here and how a bunch of them differ. Definitely not a competition of trying to say which one's better for what or anything. Just a chance for you all to learn about a base layer of I think a few of kind of what an incubator and accelerator is, what the goal of them are to do with different companies, what different types there are, and what stages of companies enter them, what you're looking to get out of them if you're interested in them. So before we get started, by a show of hands, how many folks are interested in applying to an accelerator or incubator soon? Cool. And then how many are just kind of trying to learn about the landscape and what they are? And okay. Did anybody not raise their hand? I don't know why you'd be here, but okay, good. Perfect. We're in the classroom. Cool. So before I start, we're at we're in Capital Factory. Here at Capital Factory, we call ourselves Austin's Entrepreneurial Center of Gravity. How many of you guys, it's your first time to Capital Factory? Cool. Wow, okay, welcome. So here at our space, I'm not sure if there was just a tour if you'd gone on that, but we're a whole bunch of different models having to do with technology and entrepreneurship, and we try to bring everything having to do with those things into one space. So we have 4 different models that happen here. We're a large co-working space. We've got just over 900 entrepreneurs that work out of the space, about 350 companies. We are an accelerator program, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about soon. It's much more unique than kind of the traditional accelerator model. We've got a venture fund here that supports that, and then we're a huge event center. So we do 50 events a month, 50, and these are programming meetups and hackathons and workshops and demo days, and the list kind of goes on and on. The majority of those are free and open to the public, so for those of you it's your first time, you're just kind of checking out the scene and everything. You can find most of those just on our website. Most of them are not put on or sponsored by Capital Factory, they're just other programming meetups and things that happen here. But you're definitely welcome to attend all of those. So with that, I will jump into this. So there's 2, one website, one Twitter handle you follow. Those would be the 2. We do a number of different things. We have 4 big info sessions that happen here week after week. And so you're learning about the accelerators today. We've got one on intro to angel investing. We've got one that's intro to fundraising, if you're going to be fundraising for your company. And then we have one that's just the intro to the Austin startup scene, which is just kind of a full overview. And then specifically to Capital Factory Accelerator, we typically do sessions once a week at 3 p.m. here. So if you're interested afterwards, you can let me know about that. So jumping in kind of, we use these terms of, hey, okay, can I apply to an accelerator, or I'm part of this incubator, and interchangeably, and they're kind of popping up all across the country and the world, and there's different focused ones, whether it's around a specific industry or a stage of company or something like that. But the term got really popular probably about 5 years ago with 2 major programs that are really kind of the global programs today, which are Y Combinator and Techstars. And the idea is that a company, what they're focused on primarily are technology startups, but they have these for all different types of companies. is that you'd put together a program for them to go through a period of time where they get a number of different resources and value adds, such as mentorship and space and some funding or whatever it might be. And then at the end of that period of time, hopefully you've taken the business from one point where they were and you've brought them to another point and you've accelerated. We like to think about an incubator as kind of a pre-accelerator. Incubator is incubating your idea. It's really for people that are coming up with things and they're in that ideation phase, where an accelerator is really about scaling your company and how do you take your company from where it's already a real company to making it maybe finding product market fit or getting farther along the process. So specifically in Austin, we're super thankful. I don't know how many of you guys live in Austin, but thankful to live in the best city in the world, where we've got a ton of startup activity going on. And Austin's it's a lot different than the other cities where that are startup hubs per se. So super booming city, right? We've got, I'm told, 165 people that move here every day. It's about 20 people, I think, that leave each day. And so, as you can see, fortunately, I think the only really terrible thing is the traffic. And so, fortunately, here we kind of have the 360 view to see, like, all right, should we go leave yet or not? But why is that? We're on the top of every list, right? So, at the top of the live music capital of the world, of course, top for food trucks, and then obviously the tech scene is just booming. Really interesting, the Kauffman Foundation did a study recently around startup activity. Now, this is not necessarily venture capital, but how much is going on with startups and communities, and venture is part of that. And so Austin, Round Rock, San Marcos they found to be the number one place. So the next thing is, around Austin, we are thought of differently than really what we're talking about is talking about the difference between here and Silicon Valley, kind of the two big hubs. And so different from Silicon Valley, where you can get a whole bunch of money thrown at you for a specific idea and this and that. There's a lot of crazy valuations happen here. Austin is more realistic, and we're thought of as a bootstrap first city. So what that means, a bootstrap means that you are growing your company with the resources that you have, and you're not seeking outside funding to do it. So usually people are building their companies and they don't give up any of their company. They don't bring any investors in. They're just taking together everything that they have to build a company. Also with that, when you do this and you don't have any funding, it shows a lot about where you personally can take a company from one place to the next level if you've done it all yourself, right? So the other thing is that here we're very traction focused, and some of these things we're talking about, this is just what we've discovered from seeing so many companies get funded here from the funding aspect. So like if you're talking to investors or partners that want to come on board or customers that want to sign with you, these are all the different things that we're looking at. And also if you want to join an accelerator, these are going to be a number of the things. So traction is the next thing. Now this means different things for different companies, kind of depending on what industry you're in, right? So if you are a health IT company selling to hospital systems, or difference between that and you're a gaming company, right? Building an application on your phone. The metrics are going to be a lot different what you're measuring. And so you might measure one, like the health IT company might be how many pilots you have with these hospital systems. You might not even make any money, but those contracts are really worth a lot to just get in the doors for them. If you have an app, like you better have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of downloads where you're showing that you have a lot of use on it. So again, different ways to measure traction for different companies. And the other portion of that is revenue focus. So if you are making money, now this is not true, there's different areas and routes to building a company, but if you're making money, it's generally a very good thing for investors, right? And so if you can show a trail of your growth of revenue, your monthly recurring revenue, also what investors and accelerators are very interested in. So, class accelerator program, these, this is kind of the outline of what accelerators were kind of born with. And then now we have various different programs that are all over the place. And so these are kind of some guidelines I'm going to run through what most look like. So typically accelerator programs are 3 months with a defined start date and an end date, where they bring in a group of companies together as a class, and they go through a 3-month program with a number of different things that they do, and then they graduate at the end of that. They typically give you some sort of funding up front, so anywhere from $20K to $120K is generally what we see here in Austin. And they're taking anywhere from probably like 6 to 12% equity in the company. So, this is a really big part of joining the right accelerator. When you have your company, that's a significant amount of equity of your company, right? So you want to make sure that you're choosing the right accelerator for you and for specific concrete reasons. Like you want to go in with a risk reward thing. I'm going to give up this much, and knowing that these are the 3 things that I'm targeting to do from this program. Most programs kind of have a mentorship network, and so they might have 50 mentors. Some might only have 10. Some are global and have 100. Typically, you're gonna maybe connect with 5 or 10 of them and find 1 or 2 that really click with you, and you'll either bring on board as an advisor, or you spend a lot of time with, or maybe they join your company in some capacity. But that's definitely a huge value of programs. Definitely tons of different classes and content ripping apart your business. So founder stories or classes taught by mentors. And then obviously, how are you going to position yourself to partners, to investors, to customers, to other employees? How are you pitching your business? And so those pitches are going to look very differently, where if you're pitching a customer compared to an investor, right? And then typically what happens is they all end with a demo day, which is typically it's a chance for you to get up on stage in front of the investor community and everybody else in the community to show how far you've come, to present what your company is and where you are now. And so the idea is that a bunch of press, investors, etc. show up, and it's kind of like your celebratory graduation, and then hopefully you're getting funded from there on out, and you've accelerated, and you're well on your way. So with that, I'm going to jump into next kind of the Austin Accelerator model and the difference between the different programs that we have outlined. But I'm going to pause for a minute there. Is there any questions that anyone has kind of specifically around classic model or clarification questions? Or are you all still with me? Okay, I think you're still with me. Cool. So here's a number of programs that we have here, and so number one up, this is kind of the best. This is a generalization of comparing the programs. This is super difficult because different programs are aiming to do different things for companies, and then also the equity, it really depends program to program on what they're taking from specific companies. So this is kind of a great guideline for you to just look out as a visual for one picture, but kind of take it with a grain of salt. So the first one up there is Athena Health, More Disruption Please. This is a brand new program put on by Athena Health that just came into town, opened up shop, and they're really focused on health IT companies and things that can integrate with their system. So they give $50K up front, about 3% health companies. Here at Capital Factory, I can talk a whole lot more about us, but we are looking at diverse or technology companies. And so whether it might be education tech or finance tech or real estate tech, across the board, we take we're a very different program in that we're not a typical 3-month program. We get around 100 companies or so a month that apply. We have a rolling basis, rolling application, which we'll talk about next. But typically, we accept around 5 companies a month. these companies give up 2% of equity of their company for all these different resources. And then our funding portion works where if you get 2 of our partners, which are our mentors that are invested in our fund, if they each invest in your company, then our fund will match that investment. And then we have venture capital firms that will match our match. So that's a little bit just primarily how our program works.
Can you go over that again, the matching?
Yeah. So if the reason we have the funding portion up there, if you get 2 of our partners, so Capital Factory doesn't actually give you any money up front as you come in. And so we take a much less portion of equity, so only 2 points. So the additional equity that you see there is kind of roughly how much more you'll be giving up if you take the funding. And so if you get 2 of our partners to invest in your company, typically the number is $25K a piece. Then our fund will match that investment, typically $50K, and then we have 2 venture firms that will match our match or an AngelList syndicate that we can run for you. So I'll jump a little bit more into that later on, but yeah.
I was gonna say, do you have like a percentage of the people that actually jump on the accelerator for Capital Factory and people that actually get funding through this?
What's the portion of companies that get funded through? Is that your question?
Yeah, I'm sure that there's some people that get in and then they don't get
right. So there's some companies that actually aren't even pursuing the funding. They're pursuing a whole bunch of other things they're doing, whether it's around talent or mentorship or product. About 35% of the companies that are looking to go through the matching funds process are successful with our program. We can jump back to that later on. So the International Accelerator, they typically give you $50K up front. This is focused on companies that are overseas looking to relocate into Austin or into the States, and so they're touched down in here in Austin. Their focus is really coaching you with going through that legal process, converting into a United States, like a Delaware C Corp or US company, structure to get visas, to get you to be able to work here, how do you hire people, really walking you through that transition. So they took a significant amount more equity to do all that, and they give you $50K up front. Also a traditional 3-month program. SKU is a program focused on consumer packaged goods. So if you think about usually the companies that you see on Shark Tank, if anyone watches Shark Tank, so if you're making like cookies or something, they're teaching you, and their mentor network is around how do you get the right shelf space, what's your distribution method, logistics, all of that. So those types of companies you want to go for SKU. Techstars is the next company on here, next accelerator. So Techstars is in their 3rd class here, I believe. And like I mentioned before, they're one of the first programs that first launched out of Boulder. They give you $18 or $20K up front, and then they give you a $100,000 optional convertible note. Techstars is also focused across the board on different technology companies, early stage tech companies, and they're a 3-month traditional program. What's really great about Techstars is they've got a network all around the world. They have programs that happen all around the world and industry-specific programs. So Austin is agnostic. It's not focused on any one specific industry, but some of the other ones I know, they've got a Sprint mobile health accelerator in Kansas City. They've got the Disney accelerator over in California. And so they've got a number of other things, and their global network is a huge attraction for them. So they have the roots all around the world. And then the last accelerator we have up here is Unlimited USA, which is focused and targeted at social good companies. As you can see, they don't take any equity because it's socially good. But with their model, they've got an Austin branch. Their model is this is well funded by serial social good entrepreneurs, and that if your company goes ahead and makes it, uses their resources, their hope is that you'll give back and continue to funnel their pipeline and fund the program. So also, a number of companies may do one or multiple accelerators, depending on what they're looking for. Obviously, you don't want to give up too much of your company, but we have a number of companies that have done both Techstars and Capital Factory, or Unlimited USA and Capital Factory, or Y Combinator. And so depending on what you're trying to accomplish, you got that. Yeah.
Yeah, could you give a couple examples of a company that would do both, like what the incentive would be?
Yeah. So we get for an example, there's a company called Clarify. They are the audio and video search API. So if you think about just to explain them, if you're taking a class and at a university and you're studying for a test, and you're taking a class on venture capital, you'd be able to search the database of all the lectures you listen to and type in venture capital, and it would actually search every spot in the lectures that it said venture. There's a number of different applications, obviously, across health and all these other industries. They went through a Techstars London program, and what they're focused on was building their team and then getting deeply rooted in the Austin ecosystem. So they moved to Austin and then joined our program primarily for that. And so we've got just over 120 mentors that are all top tech CEOs and serial entrepreneurs and venture capitalists. And so that was a really great way for them to just plug in from day one and to get cranking like that. And then they've also grown their team out of all the other resources we have. So there's one. Another big company is called CrateJoy. CrateJoy is a subscription commerce company. They are they build the technology behind a Sock of the Month Club or BarkBox or Dollar Shave Club, something like that. So if you have one of those businesses, you could just use their technology and their platform as the back end, and you wouldn't have to worry about fulfillment or management or anything like that. So kind of like a Shopify for subscription commerce businesses. Amir went through Capital Factory first. What's cool about Capital Factory is we don't have a time limit because different companies use different resources when they need them. So this is kind of like his home base, and he wanted to be in Austin. He went off to Y Combinator really just for a lot more connections with funding and because it's just a much more global scale there. The companies they run through. And then he came back to Capital Factory and then continued exercising our resources. And they're doing super well funded from YC. Recently, last year, at the beginning of the year, raised their Series A with Andreessen Horowitz and Charles River Ventures. So those are a couple examples.
So it's a lot of similar resources, so it's never by design, but it's through opportunity.
It's gonna totally depend on the company and the program. Right, so Capital Factory, we have a strong emphasis on talent too. The reason we have all these events and bringing, tens of thousands of developers to our space each year is to filter those people into our companies. So a company that's gone through one of these programs may want to plug into that. And so the serial entrepreneurs that join our program are really just doing it to build out their teams. And they may also join an Unlimited USA, which is going to be focused at bringing a lot of the social good network to one place. They're different networks is what you want to look at. Yeah.
Do cohort members have access to the results from any of the hackathons or like identifying talent individually? Is there
So I'll get to that. Let me run through this. But for Capital Factory, to answer your question really quickly, there's different resources for different kind of levels of membership, right? And so cohort members, you've got access to some of the hackathons and things that happen. I guess like a lot of the talent and stuff like that comes from just serendipity and being here. So I suppose in that case you will. And then we have all these other design opportunities for our accelerator companies to do that. Cool. Let me just cruise through this really quickly. This is just different times that you can apply and when their cycles are. And so if you were interested in any of those, this would be the other picture you'd want to take. So whereas Capital Factory, we take companies in on a monthly cycle, the other programs are typically once or twice a calendar year. So these are all the statistics on that. Let me see if, cool. I'll do that. Cool. So with that, I'll open up for questions. Yeah.
With the Techstar deadline here in Austin, is it the same as everywhere around the United States? Like
For Techstar's
Techstar,
programs?
Chicago, yes.
No. They have
all
totally
different
different cycles,
deadlines.
different managing directors and program managers.
Okay, now the things that Techstars look for is like universal, right? So the kind of prototypes they hope to see or the MVPs or that's the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Generally, the kinds of things are the same, right? So, kind of looking at some things you'd want to focus on. Number one is going to be your team. Techstars is number one focused on your team. Most of these programs are, which meaning that why are you the one? What you have to convince the managers that or whoever's running the program that you're the right people to run this business. They realize that your company may pivot and change several times, and so knowing that they like you and the team that can adapt to that, that's who they're betting on. They're not betting on your business and your vision, really. So number one's going to be your team, and so showing, are you an expert in the space? Have you been in this industry for some time? Have you built and sold various companies before, etc. Number two is going to be traction that we talked about. So how far along are you and how much have you done just yourself? And so do you have growing metrics that you're already tracking? Do you have revenue yet? The third thing that's going to be really big is going to be social proof. So finding someone in whatever program you're interested in, finding somebody in the network already that's either one of their portfolio companies, one of their investors, one of their mentors, to introduce you or to put a good word in for you to these companies. This is a lot how angel investing works. Like when a deal gets hot, then everybody wants you and there's a lot of hype around it. And if they have a trusted source that says great things about you, that's the number one thing they're going to pay attention to with your business. Yeah.
What is the typical equity arrangement for angels versus incubators? Like,
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, it's kind of a broad scope, right? So, like we had up here, this is typically how much money you should expect to give up with the funding and going through a program. Angel investors typically, in this day and age, or in Austin, they invest. Like we have a model convertible note that we give out to our angel investors that almost all of them across the board will do on your first round of funding, or if it's not an institutional round, meaning you're not raising real venture capital money and it's not in the millions of dollars. And so this makes it really easy for you to kind of push back all the legal fees and everything until you're ready for that. And so typically what it is you'll invest on a convertible note with $3 million cap, 20% discount, 8% interest rate. These are like the very standard terms. So looking at that, your company's worth about $3 million. So if they give you $50K, you can kind of do the math on how much you expect to give up.
On the convertible notes, do you have any say or any leeway to decide whether they get equity or just a return?
So convertible notes are so any deal that you structure can be specific to whatever you want to do, right? The standard ones, what happens is your angel investors will invest on a convertible note. And then with the hopes that if you're doing really well, they'll say, okay, and when you raise this much money, $1 million or $3 million, then our equity will convert, or our note will convert into equity. So that's almost always what happens. And then since you were in earlier, you either get a 20% discount, so like you get 100, you're in at 80% of the cost that everybody else is in for that round. Or if for some reason the company shot up, that's why you have a cap saying, oh, it's worth $3 million. Where if all of a sudden they're raising money on a $10 million valuation, well, you get it at the $3 million valuation. That's the protection behind that. There's a really great blog post I'll just point you to. This is Shockwave Innovations. is has a ton of great educational content and resources for you as a startup company. They've got a blog post. It's one of our directors of our fund, Gordon Darty, that will talk about the differences between raising an equity round, raising a safe note, and a convertible note.
Thank you.
Cool. Anything else? Yeah.
Is there a internal portal to navigate all the resources that are available during the accelerator? And if so, does something end at the end of your accelerator as far as access to the shared resources?
Can you clarify a little bit on, are you asking about a particular accelerator?
Capital Pack.
Okay.
So as far as if you're looking for like a specific type of person with talent, like
Yeah.
being able to see like who's co-working that has that specialty, or who's advisors or mentors, or is it mostly word of mouth?
Yeah, we do have that. So first of all, if you come in and we have so many mentors, we're going to recommend a top 10 that fit in with your business from a natural fit perspective. If they're, an ed tech specialist or sports tech or something like that, or if you're looking at for an enterprise B2B lead gen person, we do have an internal database where all of our mentors in our companies are tagged with their specialties. Yeah. And most programs will, but that's like a really great question that you'd want to ask any program you apply to. When you look at the main thing I want to kind of really hone in on is that these programs are as good as the people that built them and the people that are supporting them, right? And so everybody gets attracted to kind of the funding column. Any successful company that's gone through a program will tell you that's by far not anywhere near the important value of the program they went through. And so looking at, okay, what who's in their network, what kind of mentors do they have, what kind of investors are they linked up to, and what kind of resources, how do I navigate them, what does a typical day in the life look like, asked to talk to some portfolio companies are all really key questions you'd want to talk to if you're investigating.
And does anything change once you're an alumni, or do you still have the same access level?
For Capital Factory, once you're in, you're in. There's no graduation yet. I don't know when that will change. But the other programs, typically you graduate, you become an alumnus, and you have kind of access to the network. So it depends on who you're keeping in touch with. But if you're looking to hire someone, that might get sent out through their internal network, or if you're looking to get in touch with top of Amazon Web Services or something, somebody's got connected up there. So that kind of stuff.
Is
Yeah.
the demo day just for Capital Factory sponsored companies, or can you apply to the demo day if you're not in the program?
Yeah, so a million different demo days happening in town and all around. It's been a super coin thing that happens. For Capital Factory, we do it only for Capital Factory Accelerator companies that are fundraising. We do 2 a year. One's focused on investors that we host here during Austin Startup Week, where the investors pay to be here. The other one is during South by Southwest, which is much more PR focused. So those are our 2 big demo days. The other ones are kind of incorporate the 2 of those together, all these other programs. There are also a number of different conferences and events and things that come in. Our number one way of partnering with big corporations or events and things is to just sponsor and throw them a demo day. So one, we just recently did was the High Tech Demo Day. So High Tech it's largest hospitality event kind of or conference that happens in the country. So there's over 7,000 people that came to town here that are many of the CIOs and CEOs of all the major hotel chains of Starwood and I guess now Hyatt and Marriott, Hilton, whatever. And so having all those people in the same room, we reach out and we go, okay, what companies would be beneficial to pitching to them? So there's those kinds of things that you just want to pay attention to. Tomorrow, we have an open to the public pitch event that 1776 is putting on, 1776 Challenge Cup. Excuse me. So that's going to have 20 companies pitch. It's going to be a rapid pitch, 2-minute pitches with just a minute Q&A. There's different prizes and things. But hopefully that kind of answered your question.
When is that?
Tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. here.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned the incubator. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
So I talked about just the term incubator. What I would say is a place like Capital Factory, looking at the umbrella of everything that we have here, it's classified or called an incubator. Where an accelerator program is a specific, typically time-limited program where you're looking to accelerate your company. Incubator is really a space or hub of different resources and value adds where you go in and you can use these different resources to build your business. So with that, I mean, these are really focused on talking at the accelerators. I think I might, let me see if I've got anything in here. There you go. So incubators, we're saying that there's no money up front. So looking at the Austin Technology Incubator is the oldest incubator in the country. ATI is really, is affiliated with UT, really looking at commercializing University of Texas IP. The Bunker is focused on veteran entrepreneurs building businesses. Longhorn Startup Lab it's basically an incubator and accelerator in the form of a 1-semester class at University of Texas. And then there's one called Medical Innovation Labs, which is around med devices. Yeah.
How many people just office here?
There are 900 and something entrepreneurs that work out of the space.
They're off. I mean, they're working just like a shared working space versus the company office.
Oh, it's a good question. I don't know the split, but we have a number of. Chelsea, do you know the split of people that work shared space compared to offices? We have offices, we have private desks, we have co-working, we have. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I just want a kind of a breakdown of prototype. Like, what do they look for an accelerator for? Because it can mean so many different things, and I'm trying to get one together, but I'm not. When I talk to other people about it, I'm like, what kind of level, and do you want it pretty functioning? Is it at a test level? And so I kind of want to clarify, like, what are accelerators in general looking for when you look for a prototype? And how important is that in the big picture?
Yeah, is this a hardware prototype?
It's a travel platform.
Okay. I would say typically, if it's a software solution or a SaaS company, for Capital Factory anyway, we're looking that you built it and that you're selling it or somebody's using it. So it's actually it's functioning.
It's functional.
Yeah, some programs, that's not necessarily how far they want you to have been. Some people, a really successful company, Trendkite here in town, walked in with an idea on a napkin, and they've got 30 plus employees, and they're doing super well across the street now. So and they went through Dream It. So really, it's going to depend. Question probably specifically for the program that you're looking at.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. What else do you guys got? Yeah.
You just mentioned Dream It. Are there other programs in town that would potentially be a good fit for post-conceptual or prototype stage startups that might not be ready for an accelerator program? But
So many of the accelerators do accept companies that are pre-product or prototype stage. Techstars being one of them. Capital Factory would make exceptions for those. It's mitigating risk the farther you get along. So looking at all these programs, I would say all of them would accept companies that are pre-prototype. Depends what you're looking to get out of it, and if you have funding, if you have a roadmap, if you've got a plan, that kind of stuff too.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hear Techstars is based in Capital Factory, in the facility.
No. Bunkers though. Techstars ran their first program through Capital Factory. They're located a couple blocks away on 5th and Congress and 4th and Congress.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but very much so. Like a lot of people try to compare them best we can. We're actually very compatible with Techstars. We have a number of companies that go through both of them. People a lot of times try to single them out, but worth mentioning too. Yeah.
How's funding affected if you double up?
What's that?
So if you went to one first and to the next one, how does that affect the funding amounts?
I mean,
There'd be
just
restrictions, because there'd already be funding from the
oh, no. Definitely not. Most of the programs are accepting companies that the majority of companies that we accept have already have funding from some source, and as well as many of these programs. And so, I mean, that's just a matter of like their funding looks like another investor on your cap table. Shouldn't be a problem.
So there's no frowned upon, like you've done an accelerator and you go to another one like 6 months later, that's.
Well, it depends what you're looking for, and you've got to be able to justify it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's frowned upon at all.
Okay.
But
Just wondering, or, I don't know, I mean, I guess you'd hope once you get out of an accelerator that you've got enough funding that you don't have to go in another, but I guess that's not always correct to say either.
no, not necessarily. Yeah,
Yeah.
different programs offer different things. So,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. Hey.
Given the rolling sort of application and acceptance process for Capital Factory, it's pretty attractive for a company like ours. So how do you feel about geography? I guess that's why it's important, because we've been in business 3 years, in the middle of a pivot, selling some tech assets, but I've got people in New York, Massachusetts, Kiev, Minneapolis. So how would that affect acceptance, if at all?
Yeah, so Capital Factory is really focused on scaling Austin-based companies. So as long as the multiple founders, the CEO or the leadership team is based in Austin, we don't care where everybody else is. But the way that we're going to help you, because we live with our companies in this space, is that we're nearby you, and we have kind of this competitive advantage around Austin. So obviously we want to help you as much as we can, and that's something that the good programs will look at is if you're a mutual fit and it looks like we can help you. So we'll also evaluate, okay, what are the things we can do for this company? It might be a really great company, but can we give them the value they're looking for? If we can't, then we'll pass on. Yeah.
How active are the mentors in Capital Factory? 'Cause
Yeah.
you mentioned, like you do a placement, if, you see some sort of fit, but when you're applying to a program, you might know who's in the network, but you don't know necessarily how active they are.
Yeah, good question. So our mentors, it's going to vary on how active they are. In many of them, you have to understand, a lot of them may have just sold a company, may have just taken a company public, and now they've got all the time on the ground, but now they're about to join something or start something new or start investing full time. And so a lot of them go into cycles, and so you'll see them a lot at one period of time and then might drift off another time. Generally, mentors come in, they put 2 to 3 hours on a time block a month where they're going to host office hours to meet with the companies. And so they have a recurring calendar or time that they're here at Capital Factory. Some will do it bi-weekly, some will do it weekly, depending on how engaged they want to be. There's a difference. Many of them, the ones that are listed as partners on our site, are the investors and can have their funding matched, where the mentors, it might be investors or it might not be, but they're not invested in our fund. So they might be badasses in something else, in sales or customer acquisition or something like that. We also have, so there's 120 of those total folks. We've also got a number of guest mentors that come in. So there's a lot of visiting venture capitalists, a lot of folks that are in town, or serial entrepreneurs that are, hey, I'm in Austin, or that have come to visit the Capitol and we're on the map now. And so they might stop by and say, I'm interested in these types of companies and these stages that are marketplaces. And so we go through and we do that daily too.
So are those different from the mentors that sit up in the cafeteria? We did a tour before this.
Oh yeah, those are the Capital Factory mentors.
Okay.
Yes.
And they're different set from who's part of the accelerator?
So if you saw that kind of projection on the wall. Is that kind of what you're referring to? Yeah, we have a group of 120 mentors where you, as a co-work member, you have access to the mentors. There's a subset of the mentors, about 45 of them are classified as partners, where only accelerator companies have access to the partners. Those are the investors. And then a subset of the partners are classified as directors, which are the folks that have a much greater role. They're the general partners in the Capital Factory Fund and have a greater role in Capital Factory. Those are also for accelerator companies. And then a lot of the VIPs and folks that come in, that's who we're targeting to help out. Yeah.
Was the tour just before? Is there a chance for another one after the session?
It is just before. We do them Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays at 4 p.m. though. You can just show up to any of them. Yeah.
For demo day, are they primarily Austin-based venture funds, or are they from other places?
For Capital Factory Demo Day?
Yeah.
Yeah, all over the place. A lot of, and it's a pretty good split between family offices and venture firms and angel investors.
Could you make specific requests to like be introduced to specific venture funds if you want?
Yeah, we do that all the time. Yeah.
So the businesses that are being accepted into the accelerator for Capital Factory now would be pushed for the 2017 South by Southwest for Demo Day?
Right, for the South by Demo Day. And then the investor, Austin Startup Demo Day, is in between the two ACL music festivals, and so in October.
So yeah, you get that nice halfway split.
Yeah, so there's 2 a year basically, focused on different things. But with that, like I said, every day is like a mini demo day because there's people coming to town, and we're putting together, pitches for folks and investors. And then probably once a month we have some sort of other big demo day event. So recently we just also had Daimler Mercedes-Benz brought in 150 executives from all around the world. And so any companies we had, going with that can
Do
interview
you
with
by
that.
chance have any stats on the longevity for businesses that go through an accelerator with Capital Factory that sustain or that get acquired versus they just die?
Yeah, of course we track all of that. We haven't been around that long. It's been about 2.5 years, so very early to tell for the companies that are going to be acquired. The companies that have been acquired, there are 5 of them. One of them a pretty big acquisition. The other ones, the big acquisitions are not going to happen for another couple of years down the road.
Yeah, I didn't know that you guys were so new. I'm
Yeah.
fairly new to Austin.
Gotcha. Yeah. So for us, tracking all that, but since it's only a couple of years in the making, we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so do businesses need to be a corporation before because they're giving up equity, or do you guys facilitate like transition if needed?
Yeah, they don't necessarily afterwards. We give you 60 days to transfer from, if you're an LLC, is typically the case that we see, into a C Corp. So no problem whether you are or not. We're much more focused on the business than your legal structure.
And is the hub with going through Capital Factory, is that done through the website?
The application process, we do ours through AngelList. Some of the other ones do it through a service called F-Success. So we are just angel.co/Capital Factory. You can apply there.
And now the organizations that apply for incubation with, like, say, Bunker, is there like a cohabitation with Bunker and Capital Factory? Or are they looked at as 2 separate entities?
They're looked at they're 2 completely separate programs. Bunker is actually brand new. We're not brand new, or new. Bunker's brand new. And so they'll be running their own cycle through the site. And they'll also share some companies, because they don't take any equity either. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the co-working space and, how do people typically use that? And do people ever do that like part-time and then join the accelerator?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll mention to you what's unique about Capital Factory, because I want to make sure you guys also know about all the resources around town. What's really unique about Capital Factory, it has all those different models meshed together as one. So that creates this ecosystem of entrepreneurs that want to work here around like-minded entrepreneurs. It brings in investors that this is their deal flow. They can set up shop and meet a bunch of companies and do their sourcing here. It brings in a ton of press where if they want to write an article on tech trends in some specific area, they can just, so VentureBeat or TechCrunch, those folks can come in and set up office hours and meet with our companies. And then government officials, many times, we actually have a director of government relations now. They come in because they want to take credit for all the jobs being created. So that's kind of our ecosystem, our system. For the co-working space, what was your specific question? I'm going into a long-winded
I just
answer
was
here.
like, how is that typically used? What type of?
Yeah, got you. Okay.
Do they ever go into the accelerator?
Yeah. So companies that are not ready yet, we'll tell them, hey, come into the ecosystem, co-work here for a while. You'll meet a lot of the mentors, and then you get that social proof aspect of, hey, here's some of the folks I've been working with, and then maybe you're in transition from a full-time job, and you can come here and get a co-work light. There's also a bunch of other, so the reason I went into that long-winded answer is there's also a number of different co-working spaces that, suggest check out too, as WeWork is down the street, but they're really focused on everybody. Galvanize is going to be popping up. They really have a strong education portion of Coding Academy and stuff like that. But for us specifically, we can definitely keep tabs on you if you're working here. So that happens quite often.
What was that last company you were talking about?
Gal-
Generation?
Say that again?
That last business you were talking about, Galvanize.
Galvanize.
Galvanize. Now, what do they focus around?
So they're a co-working space, but they have a large education component.
And do they focus
with
specifically
coding.
like tech coding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. These are all technology folks.
So that's who we're essentially looking for mainly is coders.
Gotcha.
So we said
Yeah,
that.
we also have, we've got a coding academy within Capital Factory called Makersquare. In WeWork, there's a much more intensive coding academy. There's boot camps called General Assembly is a really great one to check out too. Yeah.
So how was the Capital Factory started? Who was funding the operation?
Yeah, also a good question. Well, I'll come right back to that. Does anyone have anything for kind of our time left? Does anyone have any other specific questions on accelerators in general, what we look for, anything, and then I can jump into other questions that surround this? Yeah.
The Unlimited USA, can you, what do you know what they're looking for?
It's really broad. So there's a girl that you should reach out to. Her name's Zoe Schlag that runs that program. And they kind of have their own criteria, but social good meaning, it can be a variety of different companies, right? Education tech, health IT, anything, a lot of clean tech stuff. So forth. Cool. Anything else around before we jump in? Okay, so Capital Factory was started about 5 years ago, and it was started as a traditional accelerator program, which was like a 3-month program. That you see a lot of these popping up everywhere. Really what it was a group of 5 or 6 mentors or serial entrepreneurs that came together and decided, hey, we should have some space or create some cool program to foster innovation in a bunch of entrepreneurs that want to do cool stuff. So they just made a little program in the side of one of their offices in this building. And then one of those companies was a company called Sparefoot, which is like the hotels.com for the self-storage industry. They did super well. 2 guys, Chuck and Mario, that moved out from UCLA, and then they saw a lot larger opportunity with all these other models to come together to create this machine. So then about 2 years after that, after they were running those programs, just the traditional accelerator programs, then we opened up this space. And open up a variety of different resources. So it was founded by Joshua Baer. He did built a bunch of email companies, out of his first ones out of his dorm room at Carnegie Mellon. The other ones, Melly Price built a company called Frontgate Tickets. If you've ever been to concerts, it's a big competitor to Ticketmaster, which Full Circle just bought them, I suppose. Andrew Busey is one of them. He built the original iChat, and then also built a number of companies and sold them to Zynga. And then we have Gordon Dartsey and Mikey Trafton that both have a lot of experience in Fortune 500 companies. Yeah.
Do you have a capacity on how many people you let enter the incubator, like the shared working?
For the just co-working here?
Yeah.
That's a good question. If there is a cap, we keep expanding and making room for people. So I don't think anybody, like, this is run by entrepreneurs, so like, I'm not gonna let that happen. So we now have the 5th floor and then most of the 7th floor now as well. And we'll keep expanding.
Do you have like a social network for people to figure out like when people with similar interests are gonna be?
Yeah, we have a large Facebook presence through So for our members, we have a Capital Factory Accelerator Facebook group, we have a Capital Factory Facebook group, we've got Capital Factory Jobs Facebook group that anybody can join. It's got like 5,000 members where only our companies can post jobs, but anybody can join and look for them. And then there's a ton of different social events and happy hours, and we just booked out the next Star Wars movie before it comes out. We like rented out the Alamo Draft House for all our members, a lot of stuff like that too. I think we got 10 more minutes or so. What else you got? Yeah.
So, B-Joy, that Goswami that started the Bootstrap Austin group, is
Yeah.
there a lot of interaction between the Capital Factory members and that organization?
Yeah. That's really one of the first organizations that focused on entrepreneurship here in Austin. So B-Joy certainly still a big name. They don't really have a specific space that they work out of, right? They're kind of floats around Austin. But definitely similar community. Another one's called the Austin Open Coffee. You can find that on Facebook. Yeah.
Is there any active curation of the networks? So seeing that people have similar interests in some way, shape, or form and connecting them, or is it just do yourself?
You should build that. No, not. I mean, there's just a number of resources all over. Not that we curate or anything.
A lot of times too, our mentors will like meet with somebody and they'll be like, hey, you met so-and-so,
Sure.
They just joined, they've been here, you guys really need to connect on this one thing too. So there'll be a lot of like, we don't set up things, but just based on the network you build here, people know people and they'll wanna connect you because you have similar interests or you have the same idea or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Anything else? Cool. We'll hang out here for a little bit of time afterwards if you guys have any individual questions or anything. But thanks for coming. Have a great Tuesday.
Thank you.
How many words of wisdom to close with?